Good afternoon, class. My name is Alex Gunther, and this will be my discussion thread 2 scenario. In this discussion, we're supposed to talk about the scenario involving a commercial pilot. He's been asked by his friend to cover for him while he takes a trip to get some jet time. He's been asked to fly a local station DJ around to cover traffic reporting, and then along this flight, there's a crash, and he's been asked to circle low around it. And we're going to talk about some of the considerations I would have and how I would handle this situation. So what we're going to cover is we're going to cover the route, the trip, the pilot, the aircraft, the environment, external pressures, and kind of my thoughts in general on how I would handle this situation. So the route, where we're going to fly is wherever this DJ needs to fly over the traffic to report it. The trip, again, it's the cover for a friend to get low jet time. So it's a good thing to do. I would hope another one of my pilot buddies would do that for me. But there are some things to consider if we're just going to hop on and take somebody else's flight. So as far as the pilot goes, it's stated that he or she is a commercial pilot. We're going to assume that the pilot is current and qualified to fly with passengers. If not, then we wouldn't be taking this flight. So some other considerations I would have if I was a pilot: first and foremost, I'd run my I'm safe checklist, make sure that I'm feeling good for the flight, and then ready to work as a commercial pilot that day. As far as the aircraft goes, there's not a lot of information, but we're going to assume that it's in good working order. All the inspections are up to date, and then we are actually checked out and current on that aircraft as well. So that'd be another consideration I'd have. We can't just hop into a plane that we're not familiar with and then take a client out to go fly in it. So that would be a no-go if we weren't. So we'll move on and assume that in this situation the pilot is current and qualified and able to fly that aircraft. As far as the environment, since they're doing traffic reporting, I'm going to assume that they're in an urban area. I don't know where or why they would do traffic reporting in a rural area. That wouldn't make too much sense to me. So for this scenario, we'll assume that we're in an urban area. And then some other considerations, obviously, we're going to be flying a little bit lower than normal. So weather, I wouldn't want to be doing this in the weather for any reason. Plus, that would defeat the point to be doing traffic reporting if we couldn't see anything on the ground. So external pressures, in this scenario, the two things I can see is wanting to help a friend out. So, be kind of go oriented because you want to help them out and you've agreed to do it. And then as well, internal pressures in the aircraft to fly lower than maybe you would be comfortable with because the DJ is asking you to do that. But we have some roles that we got to consider. So I'll cover that briefly. So in the FARS, it basically gives us minimum safe altitudes that we got to abide by. So in this scenario, we're in an urban area. We would need to be at least 1,000 feet above the highest obstacle in that area. And that would be our minimum safe altitude. Now, if we were out in a rural area, we could use 500. We'd go down to 500 feet above the highest obstacle. But again, with this being traffic reporting, I'm gonna assume that it's inside a urban area. So we're gonna have to go with 1,000 feet. So how I would probably attack this situation is I would just let the DJ know, hey, ma'am or sir, I have minimum altitudes that I have to abide by. We're not going to go any lower than that. And then on top of that, I'm not going to go any lower than I think it's safe if we have an emergency that I can't get us out of the area and then cause an even bigger accident, because we now have a second crash that we're dealing with, which is the aircraft. So we don't want to go any lower than we can't, for an engine out scenario, we don't want to go any lower than where we can't get out of that area and try to land safely. So how I would probably attack this is I would look on my VFR sectional and I'd find my MEF, and then that gives us at least 100 feet above any obstacle or terrain in that sector. And then I would then go ahead and take my 1,000 feet and add that to that. And that would probably be my minimum altitude I would ever go down to at any given time. With that being said, that only gives us 100 feet. So I would probably stay up a little bit higher than that as well. A lot of considerations in an urban area. As far as obstructions would be, towers, buildings, bridges. So taking it down to that 1,000 feet is actually still pushing it. So I probably wouldn't take it all the way down that far. And again, the biggest factor would be, hey, if we have an engine out scenario, I want to be able to get out of the area, egress the area, and try to make a safe landing somewhere. So I would take that all into consideration and just brief that DJ that prior to us taking off, just so he knew what the expectations were for the flight, and kind of help take some of those external pressures away. When we ended up reaching that crash, he already knew that, hey, he's not going to go below those minimums, and that takes that pressure off of me as a pilot, because I've already briefed it, and that expectation has been set, and that's what I would stick to. So that's how I would deal with the situation. Thanks for listening. Appreciate it.